Hi there, in this video we're going to work on section 1.8 inequalities. So I'm going to break this into a few videos solving basic inequalities, then higher order inequalities, compound inequalities, and absolute value inequalities. So let's start with the basics of linear inequality. But first, let's start with an equation. So suppose if I ask you to solve the equation 3x minus 2 equals 8, say 3x plus 2 equals 8, what number would work for x? So if you were to solve this, right, you would subtract 2 and divide by 3, or you can do it by inspection and see that 2 works. Right, if you do 3 times 2, that's 6, plus 2, that is equal to 8, and so that works. Is there anything else that works for this equation? No, 2 is the only solution. And so what if it was an inequality? So I ask you for what if 3x plus 2 less than or equal to 8? So if I ask you to solve that, now how many answers are there? Notice that 2 still works. Right? I have 3 times 2 plus 2 is equal to 8. And why does that work? Well, that works because it says less than or equal. So since we have the equals there, that means that x can be equal to 2. So x equals 2 works. But there are other things that work, right? If I have 3 times 1 plus 2, that's 5, which is less than 8. You could do all kinds of things. 3 times 5 thirds plus 2. The 3's cancel here. 3 times 5 thirds is 5, plus 2 gives us 7, which is still less than 8. So when you have an inequality, the solution is not going to be just one like it was for an equation. You get a range of solutions. So x could be in a range of values. And so oftentimes for inequality, you're asked to write your solution in interval notation because it's a range of values. So let's try, for example, let's continue solving this one. So for the most part, we treat it like an equation. So I'm going to have 3x plus 2 less than or equal to 8. And I can subtract 2 from both sides. So as long as I do it to one side, you have to do it to the other. So here I'm going to have 3x is less than or equal to 6. And then divide both sides by 3. When we divide both sides by positive 3, we get the x's cancel, and I have x is less than or equal to 2. And so we can draw ourselves a number line, and I'm going to put 2 in here. And I use the circle notation, so I'm going to put a circle there, and then I'm going to decide, is it open or closed? So is it included or not included? Because we have the equals here, that means that it is included. So I'm going to fill it in. So it's going to be a solid circle, and x less than 2 means that we are smaller than 2. So all the numbers that are smaller than 2 will be part of the solution. So if you're smaller than 2, you are to the left of 2. So we're going to shade this way. And then from here, so this is the number line answer. Number line solution. But from the number line, we can write it in interval notation. So my interval notation solution will be that x is in the interval from minus infinity, because this goes all the way to minus infinity, to 2. And because this is included, we're going to use a bracket. Depending on when you took your intermediate algebra class and what method was used, sometimes you see the number line created with a parenthesis or bracket in it already. I prefer the circle notation just because if I want to put a parenthesis or bracket here, I kind of need to know which way I'm shading first. So then you will go x less than 2, so you're going to shade this way, and 2 is included, so you will do a bracket. But some people like this, the bracket and parentheses, because then it helps you transition to interval notation better. So let's try another example. So what if I ask you to solve the inequality? Say 7 minus 3x less than 19. Similar as before, we can for the most part treat it like an equation, so I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. And when I do that, the 7's here cancel, and we have negative 3x is less than 12. And now I'm going to divide by negative 3. And some of you, depending how fresh your intermediate algebra is, you're already seeing some red flags, right? I'm dividing by a negative, so that means something. What does that mean? It means that we switch the sign. So I'm going to have x is actually greater than negative 4. And so for the number line, I will put 4. There's no need to put 0 in here. We only put the value that is I call it the significant value. And so I have negative 4 here, and then I'm going to put a circle. And is that open or solid? And because there's no equal there, that means x cannot be equal to negative 4, so I'm not going to fill it in. So it's going to stay an open circle. And this says x is greater than negative 4. So we're going to shade to the right, all the way to positive infinity. So then my interval notation here is going to be x is in parentheses, because it's not included, negative 4, all the way to infinity. So this will be my answer. In the next video, we're going to talk about why do we switch the sign.